Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. This is the I think it might be the last of the NORA Webcast Series for the year, or certainly before Christmas. So thank you, everyone who's joining us today. We have a very, very special guest lined up. Before that, I do want to recap on a couple of things. Obviously, we had the National Online Recruitment Awards, I think about 4 weeks ago now, 4 or 5 weeks ago now. We had some stupendous winners and amazing finalists right across the board. So for all of our awards this year, we had an outstanding array of finalists and winners, and the attendance at the event was really quite phenomenal. The support that we have from sponsors, again, extraordinary, especially PH Creative, who are our main sponsors. Now, back to today's show. Today, I have a very, very special guest who were winners of our Best Innovation in Online Recruitment Award. So without going on too much before we have it on screen, let's bring to the screen my very special guest today, Lorna Davidson, CEO and founder of redwigwam. Good morning, Lorna. How are you?
Morning, Stephen. I'm very well, thank you. The sun's shining, so it's a good day.
Oh, that's brilliant. Where exactly in the UK are you based?
The business is actually based in Liverpool, but at the moment, as everybody is, we're working from home, so I'm actually over in the Chester area.
Fantastic. So that's, if anyone wants sun in the UK today, then get to Chester.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, so good.
Okay. So for anyone listening out and hearing that you have what might be kindly described as a combination accent, you've lived in different places in the UK. There's a bit of Scots in there. There's a bit of North English in there. It doesn't sound the right way to say it, but you've been around.
Yeah, I've been described as that before as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. I was born in Scotland, moved south with my family, went back to university in Scotland, then started my first job up in Scotland. So up and down the motorway a few times.
Superb. Now, the earliest part of your career, I have to say, in looking at your CV, you were in one of those jobs that I often really wanted to have, which is working for Kellogg's, working CTN, FMCG, that sort of thing. But you then latterly got into recruitment. How did that happen? How did you switch your career around and come into to that sector?
Well, it's been quite a journey for me, if I'm honest. So I did start with Kellogg's and had a great founding in FMCG, loved it. Then actually went and did 10 years with the Mars organisation. So again, a great experience, but also got to know the UK grocery trade really well, had lots of sort of contacts. And so decided I was going to do something by myself. And so I set up a business called Tactical Solutions, which was a field marketing business. So we used to call on all the major supermarkets on behalf of food manufacturers, using EPOS sales data, etc., to make a difference in store. Loved that business. It was fantastic fun. Grew the business, but decided that it was time for me to do something else. So I went through a sale process. And everybody that tells you selling your business is awful and you shouldn't entertain it, I was completely the opposite. I loved it.
Oh, really?
So I absolutely loved it. So for somebody who's a control freak like myself, to have people come in and look at the business and see it through new eyes and, and recognize that actually we did some things really well was a really great experience. And even due diligence, I love, to be fair. So, but sold the business. I was fortunate enough, I got 6 offers for the business and sold it to a UK-based PLC. So stayed and did my earn out. Didn't earn it all, had to be said, but we were all very well behaved. They did their job, I did my job, etc. And at that point, we do things slightly differently in my house. So my husband's a stay-at-home dad. So on my first day where I was ungainfully unemployed, and I said to him, "So Jeff, what have you got on this week?" And he said, "Oh, a bit of this and a bit of that." I said, "Oh, how are you going to know by Friday if you've had a good week? You've got no clear objectives." And he said to me, "Oh, Lorna, you've got to go back to work. This is never going to work." So at that point,
you didn't give him KPIs, did you?
Oh, nearly, I have to say. I think he was definitely a little scared. So I came up with a number of different business ideas. And one of the ones that I felt most passionate about was redwigwam. And redwigwam was born out of frustration, if I'm honest. So it was born out of frustration that when I was running Tactical Solutions and we had 380 full-time staff, 800 part-time staff, whenever a client would say to me, "Can you?" I found it really difficult to get good temporary staff. I found it really difficult for them to turn up on time, wearing the right clothes, having the right skills, etc.
Yeah.
And likewise, I'm the mum of 3 overstimulated boys. You know, they can't walk unless their thumbs are going. They can't watch a football match unless it's been streamed with the world.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I thought, they're never going to work in the same way that I did. They're never going to sit behind their desk for 40 hours a week. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you could take this generation of people that want to work flexibly, want to work differently, but actually want to do amazing jobs and match it with people's requirement for great staff when they need them. And that was where the idea came from. So it's a little bit like a dating site. So it's got a very clever algorithm. My first mistake, and I've made many in this journey, but my first mistake was I thought it'd be really clever. I'd just tell some really clever developers what I need. They'll give me it back and I'll be in business. What I discovered was no matter how much time and effort I put into briefing people, it never quite came back as I was expecting. So they come back and they say to me, look at this, it's so really clever, it does this. I go, that's amazing, does it work? No, but it does this. I just need it to work. So I've actually got an in-house team that have built the platform. So the platform is completely bespoke. It, as I say, it works on a very clever algorithm that matches workers and hirers from anything from a 15-minute task to a full-time job. It works on skills, experience, but also attributes. Are you likely to turn up for work on time? Do you have good attention to detail?
Yeah. Can I reverse a little bit? Because it's often the case that when speaking about any business, whether it was me talking about something I knew intimately, or you obviously with Red Wigwam, you know it intimately, and it's often the case that you can be talking about a business and people are not they're not grasping it, and I think it's important to grasp what Red Wigwam is. So first of all, and this might sound like a silly question, but where did the name come from?
Do you want the honest answer or the spin answer?
Give me the honest answer. It's usually more interesting.
The honest answer was I wanted a name that I could build a brand behind, but one that people could spell. So we came up with the name Wigwam, and of course you can't get a domain name that's a single name anymore, so we put Red in front of it.
Yeah.
It does indicate community and all those type of things, but that's exactly where the name came from.
No, that's absolutely fine. The reason that I ask is that so many companies, well, certainly in recruitment, companies will name themselves after the founders, and it sounds like a firm of solicitors, and nothing could be more dull. But when you're thinking about the name for a company, you want it to be unique, and you were talking about having sold a company before. When you're in a business and it's got your name on the front door, it's more difficult to sell because at some point you won't be in the business anymore. So when you've got a company that stands alone and builds its own character, then if it's got a unique name, then it's got much more scope to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. And I think the thing for me is this isn't a traditional recruitment company. So I know we do recruitment, but it's not traditional. So therefore it had to feel and look different. It had to be a different entity.
Absolutely. So again, most people who do set up traditional recruitment companies, they'll come from having been a recruiter with an agency, and they then go and set up the kind of business that does the type of recruitment they did as a perm or a temp recruiter. You came at it from a completely different perspective, which of course means that you're not following the supposed rules of what you're supposed to do. And not so much that you're making it up as you go along, but you're responding to the needs that you see in the market, and you're saying, well, I can see that people want this, companies want that, and if we do this, it could really work. Now, as I say, I want to get to the kernel of that. So what would be the first types of clients and candidates that you were thinking about matching together that you thought, well, there's a business here?
Well, I think so. My background is retail, so therefore it's not a surprise that we sort of started by bringing people into the business that were working in retail. But we looked for people that genuinely wanted to work flexibly. So we have a digital recruitment plan that takes in students, return to work parents, and recently retired. So people that genuinely don't want to work 5 days a week every week. They want to do things a little bit differently. It's probably not a surprise during COVID that's changed. So in the first 2 weeks of lockdown, we had over 10,000 people register with us. So we've got lots of people now that are maybe looking for something a little bit more full time, etc. But it was the flexibility was the big thing for us. And what we were looking for from clients was people that could treat people properly. So when they arrived, they didn't treat them like the temp. They treated them like a value add into their team, but actually they could only bring them in as and when they needed them. Probably not a surprise. We do a fair amount of work in retail and also field marketing, which is my background.
Yeah. So retail is one of those sectors where flexibility is absolutely the watchword right now. Going back maybe 20 years, then you would have, stores and stores and stores in high streets where for large parts of the day, they would have too many staff. They would have staff hanging around, waiting for something to do. And rush hours, whether it be lunchtime or whatever other time of the day, or weekends, where things were crazy. So flexibility in retail is absolutely what companies would want, and a lot of people working in retail looking for roles where they can be, and it might be, and this sounds a bit cliche to say, it might be getting the kids out in the morning, going and working 4 hours from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then back for the school run, or people who are the other things on the go, and retail fits in exactly with their lifestyles. So, in terms of levels of temporary staff that you're putting into those flexible roles, is it all frontline? Is it all people on the shop floor, or is it right across the different levels?
It's right across the different levels. So again, one of the areas we do a fair amount in is logistics. So again, with the increase in online shopping, we're putting people in there. So again, one of the things that we think is very special about our model is that workers can do lots of different types of jobs. Yeah. So we employ everybody. So they're employed by one person, but they might be in a warehouse this week. They might be doing telesales next week. They might be in a retail store the week after. So they're getting some real variety, but hopefully building some real skills as well.
So the founding principles of Redwigwam, what would you say that those were?
It's a really good question. So the founding principles for me was that I was not a recruiter. I was a service provider. Yeah. And I was serving both my workers and my hirers. So I believe I've got an important job for both sides. Mm-hmm. So my workers have to be part of my community, and they have to be engaged, and they have to do a great job for me. Mm-hmm. And the hirers have to see that we offer real flexibility and real value add. Yeah. And convenience. So again, it's things like being, the world's changed. It used to be that you'd pick up your phone to your local temp desk and they'd send you in 20. Yeah. We're all online. So you can do it when you're sitting in front of the telly. You can do it on your phone. You can decide when you want to work. We literally are open 24/7. So it's a very different type of proposition. But those are the values that we were trying to create.
Okay. So in practical terms, from an employer's point of view, if an employer is looking to engage Redwigwam and source staff, what would be the typical requirement of an employer, and what would be their experience in putting jobs out to you and getting staff through on whatever flexible terms?
And so the big thing is it can be whatever you want it can be. So we offer two services. One what we call managed, and one is self-serve. Yeah. And most of our clients are self-serve. So they manage the process themselves. So we see ourselves as a site that gets somebody to your front door. Mm-hmm. So we do everything from the legal checks. We make sure they've got the right to work in the UK. We do all the sort of, not the very sexy bits, but the really important bits to get to the front door. Yeah. When they arrive with the hirer and the employer, it's the employer's responsibility to make sure the briefing and the job is then shared with the individual in the correct way. Yeah. After that, we then would ask the hirer to actually grade the worker from 1 to 5. 1 being never darken my door, 5 being they were amazing. Can you put them in my resource pool? And they become first choice for you. And that does a number of different things for us. And hopefully gives the hirer some real confidence in the robustness of our process. So what we do with that information is we check our algorithm. So it's a self-learning algorithm. We said this person was going to be great. They weren't. Why weren't they? Yeah. Let's understand it. But we also use it as a way of offering work. So all our 4- and 5-star workers are offered jobs first, and then it goes down the chain. So again, one of the things that's very important for me, all the things I learned when running big teams remotely, I've tried to put into a digital platform.
So there's a meritocracy there.
Yeah, absolutely. The better job you do, the more work you'll get with us. Yeah. If you're not doing a great job, we then are there to try and help understand why not. So the type of thing we have e-learning sites. We have a development manager that might pick the phone up to you and say, let's just chat that through, what didn't go so well, etc. So we do lots of the things about building the community, even though we're still digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that idea of community, I'd like to know more about that in terms of building your community of not only the temps that are working for you, but I suppose on the other side, there will be a community amongst employers, but primarily on candidates. How do you nurture those candidates that they feel loyal to redwigwam? Because if someone's working on a temp basis, they often are registered with multiple agencies at the same time,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
get conflicting job offers at different times.
I think it was interesting. So if I'm honest, it was one of the things I probably got wrong when we started. I probably underestimated the requirement for feeling part of a community. And we actually did a worker survey. And we were actually wondering whether we should do some crowdfunding. So we'd asked the question, should we do it? And 60% of our staff said that they would invest in the business.
Wow.
So, and we asked the question, well, if you were to invest, what would you like back? And I genuinely thought we'd get profit share, equity, you know, all the normal. And what they actually said to us was they'd like first choice of jobs, but they would also like to be involved in redwigwam events. And that was a real light bulb moment for me, which said, even though people want to work remotely, they want to work online, they want to do it differently, they still want to feel like they belong. So we do a number of different things, and we work very hard at trying to build our community. But one of the big things that we think sets us apart from anybody else is we pay incredibly quickly. So your point about how did they work for me and not go down the road and work for somebody else is, if you work for me today, you can get paid tomorrow. So we run payroll every single day of the week. We pay weekly, monthly, or daily. So our workers have that choice.
I've never heard of that, I have to say.
No.
Being paid so quickly, and when people are working on a temp basis, they're not working in the same pattern as normal people, where they might be, you know, having a month's work or a week's work. It might well be that they literally only do 1 week out of the month. One day out of the month, and if they get paid the next day, people who are working temporarily, they're often in a position where they want to do the work, get the money, and spend the money. Frankly, they've got bills to pay the same as anyone else.
Absolutely. And when what we put in the other so we worked really hard. We had to work very hard to get weekly pay through by the HMRC, etc., or daily pay through, because people, they don't like you doing it. But my view is, if you do a great job, let me reward you straight away. And if you're a student and you want to go to the pub at the weekend, you need the cash. If you want to buy your kids new shoes. So it was that bit about going, actually do an amazing job for us, and we'll pay you incredibly quickly. So 80% of our staff are paid on a daily basis.
Wow, that's extraordinary. In a way, it kind of harkens back to the days when people would be, you know, paid cash in hand. If someone was, you know, turning up at a building site and, you know, picked out of a lineup of, you know, 20 people, I'll have you, and you. And at the end of the day, they're paid for the day's work that they've done. But this is obviously, you know, with modern technology, you've got the ability to do it. Then, you know, why shouldn't it be possible?
And everything's PAYE, so we pay the tax, the national insurance, holiday pay on everything that we do.
So with that community that you're building up, I often say to companies who offer commission-only jobs, there's a lot of them out there, that effectively what they're asking people to do is, on commission only, is to invest in their business. They're looking for them to spend time in their business for future returns. So it's an investment. When people are working with you, then they're not only being paid for the time that they spend on the job, or the time that they spend with the employer, and getting paid for it, but they are also investing in the work and in themselves and in their own reputation, and to an extent in redwigwam. So that loyalty, if you like, is the investment that they're giving in the work that they do. And if that's coming back to them by way of, you know, more work, better quality work, more reliable,
and also the ability to sort of try something different. So as I say, I'm a mum of 3 boys. My middle boy, son Ross, who was at university down in Cardiff, spent 2 summers taking jobs off the system, and he went from having nothing on his CV to, he'd done customer service, he'd done retail, he'd done hospitality, and what he actually had was a really clear view of things he didn't want to do again. So it was, not only did he have a CV he could talk about, he had some understanding about what work looked like, and therefore he, you know, he could think about it again. So we think that's a different way as well that we pay people back.
Do you know, this is a great way of experimenting with, you know, you might think, I could like working in this environment, but going to try it for yourself on a temporary basis, and realizing it's absolutely for me, or it's totally not for me, is a great way of doing that. So if you can be a reliable individual, if you've got your wits about you and you can learn quickly, then this sort of work is a great way of finding out what you're good at and what you would enjoy doing on a longer term.
Absolutely. And we use e-learning as well to try and actually put things back into people as well. So we don't just say, oh, go and try something if you've got no experience. We'll give you some training beforehand to go out and do it.
So it's often the case with temporary workers. If someone's working in an employer, then the employer expects them to turn up, do the job, go away, and there's very little onboarding and training. They just want arms and legs. Someone to work in a warehouse, someone to work in a shop environment, and they're expected to know what they're doing straight away. But on that training and development side of things, I'm really interested in what you do to upskill the people that are coming through your doors.
So, as I say, we do a lot on e-learning. We've got a development manager that will pick the phone up and do that type of thing. But the other thing is we've partnered with some training agencies. Uh-huh. So we have, during COVID, we've been thinking about how can we help people make sure they get the right type of work. So we have courses, online courses that we can offer via different training agencies to try and help people. But my marketing team are going to kill me because I'm about to announce something that they were for. But next year, we as a team we think we all actually have got some great talents. So as a team, we're going to invest next year. All of us are going to be running different sessions for our workers on what we think we can do. Wow. So our marketing team are going to be taking people through digital marketing, how to have a good LinkedIn profile, all the things that actually having a little bit of input make a big difference. So as a team, we're going to pay back to the community in a different way as well next year.
Yeah. So obviously the business it's not just been created this year. It's been going for a few years now. And what you will have are alumni, people who have come through the business and they've gone on to do permanent careers elsewhere. When building a community, alumni can be a great way of leveraging people who know the business, know the ethics of the business, and can be giving endorsements. How can that work for redwigwam?
Well, it works for us in lots of ways. So you're absolutely right. It's our biggest advocate if people can talk about it, and it was successful for them. But what we find is that people that work for us will then go and work in an organisation and bring us in. So it'll be, have you thought about using redwigwam? And we do that. The other thing we have is we have a team of redwigwam consultants. So that's people that are wondering what to do with themselves in terms of their next move, or actually wanting to do things a little bit differently, but have lots of contacts in the trade. And those people are actually working with us in terms of making sure the redwigwam name's out there, making sure it's held in the right way, etc. So that, word of mouth is very important for us.
So these people are ambassadors, and there was a campaign I think McDonald's had in the States years ago. I say years ago, a few years ago anyway, and it was America's best first job or favorite first job. So many people go through that, and then wherever they go in their career, they've always had that initial training, so they always have good feelings towards McDonald's. Again, with yourselves, and not everyone coming through your doors is at the beginning of the career. There's lots of people who at different points, you might be in their 50s or 60s, they might be in their teens. But having had the experience from redwigwam, then wherever they go, they're able to spread the word and talk about what you do and how you do it. And that training and development side of things, I think is one of the vital messages that they can be taken with them. So in terms of the quality of work that your staff are doing, you spoke about the training and the ways in which employers can be scoring candidates or individuals who come and work for them. Is there anything beyond that you use to ensure that the quality of staff that people are getting is going to be to a high standard?
We obviously run our algorithm as well, so that's the biggest thing, because that tells us straight away in terms of what people's personalities are like, etc. So that's the biggest thing for us. We also have a 3 strikes in your out rule.
Oh, okay.
So let me down 3 times in whichever way, then we don't want you to represent redwigwam, and we won't work with you going forward. And again, we're very upfront about that.
Yeah.
So my view is, as long as you tell people, that's okay.
Yeah. So if someone doesn't show for work 3 times, for example.
Correct.
Yeah.
If they go along and they don't do a great job, or they, we're told to wear black and turn up in brown, that type of thing. We say, right, you've got 3 strikes, but after that, we won't work with you. We put your account on hold.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask, we've had a crazy year. Everything's been turned upside down. The year you'll have had in 2019, you couldn't even compare it with 2020. But how has the market changing affect how you've gone about business this year?
It's been, I mean, like everybody else, it's been a roller coaster of a year. I mean, we've had our best year ever, and we've grown quite significantly this year.
Wow.
And I think that's been on a number of levels. I think we pivoted quickly. So that terrible word that everybody uses, but I think we did. I think we maximized that in the first place. But I think also people are recognizing the value of flexible working. So I think in terms of our message and our, what we're trying to achieve, I think it's been accelerated by COVID.
Yeah.
So in a bizarre way, we think that we've probably moved a few years forward during this process. The other thing is we find that candidates, workers are saying to me, I want a bit more control. Yeah. So in actually choosing when they work with us and choosing what type of work they do gives them more control. Yeah. And so those are the type of things that made a big difference for us. But yeah, it has been a roller coaster, but it's been, I can't complain. We've had a good year. We took investment in this year as well, and that happened during lockdown. The whole team have worked from home, and we've managed to keep our business going. And as I say, we had 10,000 people in 2 weeks register with us, which again demonstrates the robustness of the platform, which is always good to see.
Yeah. So don't tell me if I'm being nosy, but I'm always being nosy. I'm a recruiter at heart, which means I always want to know more. How many people have you got out at the moment, or typically would you have out with employers?
It completely varies, and I know that is a really vague answer to a very specific question.
Well, I know there'll be seasonal swings.
There's seasonal swings, but there's also things about. So we do a lot of mystery shopping jobs, lots of retail jobs. So I might have 4,000 people out doing that one day, and then they might not be out the next day. So it's really difficult to see. But what I would say is that we have a significant number through payroll every single day.
Yeah.
And of course, we've done lots of work in logistics where people are working, 3-4 months up till Christmas, etc.
Yeah. Well, and as you say, the markets that you're strongest or most well known in, and you're not just in one, but the two big ones, logistics and retail, they'll have been up and down all year.
Absolutely.
And logistics is going crazy right now, whereas retail has had a tough time all year. Hospitality has obviously been tricky, but we'll see how that comes back. But there are more areas than just those that are looking for flexible staff. Again, you were talking about people doing call center work, and a lot of call center work can be done from home, can be done remotely. You could be anywhere in the world. So in that sense, are you finding that where there's temporary work that's looking for people specifically from the start and throughout to be working from home, that your candidates can literally be based anywhere? They could be in Aberdeen, they could be in Cornwall, they could be in a beach in Madagascar.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I think that's the real value. The only watch out we've got to look out for is when people talk about flexible working, they think it just means it's home-based working.
Yeah.
And for us, it's not quite. It is about being able to work in a very different way, but without a doubt. So we do that type of thing. But I think the other type of work we do that is a little bit different is we do all the telesales, etc., as you would expect. But we also do mystery shopping. We do online reviews. We try some very different things. And again, probably not a surprise, we've done a lot more cleaning in facility management during the last 6 months. So again, we've found that there's been a real requirement for that. So again, we've been quite heavily involved in that.
Yeah. It's just occurred to me a question, and this is kind of going off track a little, but if you had a role that was specifically remote, someone can be working from home and they can physically be based elsewhere, is it still the case that you would need to check their ability to work in the UK if they're based somewhere? If they're in South America, are they working in the UK if they're doing the job from Rio de Janeiro?
Yes, they are, because we'd be paying them. So they'd be going through the UK payroll. So yeah, we would absolutely have to check the right to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of the market evolving and developing in the next 12 months, do you have any wisdom on how you can see that going, or what with Brexit and the ups and downs we're going to have with inoculations? Do you have any insight to what you think is going to happen, or is everything up in the air?
I think people are trying to be as optimistic as they possibly can be about going into 21. And the feedback I'm getting is actually we don't want to commit to full-time staff. And therefore, we will work flexibly because it actually gives us the ability to scale up and scale down without the risk factor. So we're hearing a lot more of those conversations. The other conversation that I've been having a lot recently, which has surprised me, if I'm honest, is I want to take somebody on, but I'm not sure I can afford to keep them on full time.
Okay.
Could you employ them for me and then work them through the system so that if they could only give them 30 hours a week, they then give, we could find them another 10. So we've been doing a lot of that as well. So I think people are trying hard, but they are definitely trying to mitigate their risks going forward, so that if we go into another lockdown, etc., that they, they're not carrying the same burden.
In traditional recruitment agencies, and I've run a couple over the years, we often talk about temp to perm. So would you have clients who might have someone on a temporary or flexible basis that they're then keen to convert to be a permanent employee? And how would that work?
Well, we're really straightforward about it. So my view is I never want to keep anybody out of work. So we have a transfer policy. Yeah. So you can transfer a worker from us to you for £199.
Okay.
So we, it's just it's an admin fee cover rather than anything else. And what we hope
the full TUPE transfer.
Correct. And that means that the worker then feels that they've been supported, the hirer feels they've been supported, and they both think they've had a great experience with redwigwam.
Yeah. I'm saying TUPE there. I might be out of date in my memory of the legislation and so on. What exactly does TUPE stand for again? I don't mean to put you on the spot because I can't.
And you are putting me on the spot. I can't actually remember. It's transfer of da-da-da. But basically TUPE means is that you transfer somebody over that's doing the same job for one company for another. And that instance wouldn't necessarily be a TUPE instance, but it would be a change of contract.
Yeah, because I think normally that would mean you're transferring over their length of employment, their period they've been employed for, and all of the accruals that they would have in terms of holiday pay, that sort of thing.
Where that wouldn't be the case.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, I'm going to TUPE transfer. I'm going to go and look it up now.
So in terms of job sectors, and we often see this more in temporary and flexible employment than any others, that you're a really good barometer for what's coming. Can you point to any particular sectors and say these are going to be hot in the next few months?
I think it's the same ones that have been hot this month. So I think this year, I think it's grocery. I think it's online, anything online, definitely. So logistics, but cleaning and facility management, we think are very strong.
There you go. Martin Lee has just typed in the chat bar, transfer of undertaking
there you
protection
go.
of employment. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Martin's the cleverest guy in recruitment, so we can always rely on him to be chipping in with some
Fantastic.
gems. That's great to know. So getting back to redwigwam, and we've gone through a lot of the areas that make redwigwam unique. It appears to me that anyone who'd come from the traditional recruitment environment couldn't have set up and built redwigwam, because you would have it ingrained into you. This is the way we do things, and you've quite clearly gone about things in a novel and unique way that absolutely work. And I think there's acres there that people in recruitment can take as inspiration. Not that they should be setting up in competition to you, because there are already lots of companies in competition with what you do. But learning about what's working, what candidates are expecting, what employers are looking for in terms of that flexibility, and a real partnership with a provider of staff on a temporary and flexible basis. It could be, as we say, the traditional way of thinking about temp staff, whether it's someone working a Saturday afternoon in W.H. Smith, or someone who's an accountant but is looking to work 2.5 days a week because they've got other obligations. So it's not as simple as saying the old-fashioned way of thinking about temps. We've gone over I think a lot of ways in which. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, got you.
We've gone over a lot of ways in which we think redwigwam are unique. Do you have any particular plans for expansion that you can tell us about? You were talking about the areas that your marketeers might get a bit annoyed at you. Any other plans that you have in the next 12 months?
Yeah, we've got very, not surprised. I'm ambitious. So for me, the big thing about redwigwam is about getting it into as many people's households. It's about making a difference to as many people's lives as we possibly can. So we have got some very, very large plans for next year. So again, we're going next year to over double the business again in size. and that will be via digitally recruiting the right workers and digitally recruiting the right hirers. So yeah, we've got a big year ahead of us.
Fantastic. Well, can I say once again, huge congratulations and very, very well deserved. The best innovation in online recruitment for yourselves with the National Online Recruitment Awards this year. The competition was really stiff, and you were up against some. Well, one of the contenders was Zoom, and if anyone's been a big factor in innovation in recruitment this year, even though they don't build a product for recruitment, everyone's using it. So to win that, I have to say, is a huge endorsement. I hope you go from strength to strength. I hope it's not your only NORA going forward. Lorna, it's been absolutely fabulous speaking with you this morning, learning more about redwigwam. All the best, and have a fantastic Christmas.
Likewise. Thanks very much for your time, Stephen.
Okay. Thanks,
bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone who's tuned in today. If we don't speak again before Christmas, have a fantastic holiday period, and catch up with us soon for the next show. I'm hoping to do one next week, but if not, it's going to be in the new year. So in the meantime, thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye, Lorna.